And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 105th episode of DevKami, and I'm Calum.
And I am Tristan.
And I'm assuming this is Hazel.
Don't know how
And we
to lead
have
up to that,
Andy
Hi.
joining us, and Calum joining us later as well.
Hello.
So let's
he's
start
already
with
here.
our events. Or you want to? So what everybody are up to nowadays? I know Tristan had the FPGA.
Yeah, I got the FPGA I talked about last time delivered finally. So I have no idea what to do with it. For those of you who are wondering why I got this, I joined some giveaway from Element 14, and they decided, sure, as long as you write about your experiences with this, we'll give you this 500 ringgit worth of FPGAs. And so I said, okay, sure, I can write something about it. And now I have no idea. So maybe this weekend I'll figure things out. I'm asking Sean a lot, like what would I use a FPGA for? So he has lots of good input.
Who's Sean, if you don't mind me asking?
Sean is in the engineers of my Slack group. The one who
okay.
just type FPGA, he'll be attracted to that and he'll comment on that.
Because he's literally a microprocessor engineer.
Yeah.
So he actually knows his shit. So for me, I built another Gundam. This model is actually called Hazel. It's not a cute name. The model is called Hazel. So yeah, that's all that interesting. Of course, there's some other interesting thing happen, but that comes later. So let's show our events then. So it will be a slow events day for the next week or so. We only have Go meetups on 8 p.m. So
yeah, well, that's what happens when you have a lockdown again.
Correct. So be safe, people. Don't go crazy. And yeah, I think that's about it.
That's a quick.
Is it? I think there's is there not an AWS event happening tonight? I thought I saw that on my Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Well, everyone's tuning in to DevKami, so nobody's going to AWS tonight, as far as I know.
So let's.
We probably announced it last week.
Correct.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So let's start with our bus corner. So the first thing on the news is the CloudFrame browser installation service. So this is actually interesting because CloudFrame had been a service that actually helped reduce DDoS attack. Now they also built a service to essentially run a browser session offsite and isolate it from your actual browser session before they send it to your browser. So what happened then is that you actually had a safe environment to run your website. So which is actually very interesting. I do not know how do we access to it. So yeah, here it is.
Oh, so they render the page, probably convert it to just HTML and then send it to you?
Yeah, something like that. So and apparently what they promised also that nothing will break. I need to test it. I didn't test it yet. It's in beta. Maybe I figure out how to test it later.
So this is almost like a VPN, except that there's like an actual layer of caching in the middle.
Right? Correct. So each of the VPN service and ISP actually have a caching service behind the scene. Often your ISP have it in those days when we run a network service in let's say an office, you will definitely have one called Squid, for example. You install Squid as a caching service. So that happened, but this is a bit more different in the way that they actually those days it's easy because all HTML are static. Nowadays it's a bit more complicated. You kind of break that, but now this is actually a caching service and a bit more. So yeah, that's a bit interesting. So the next thing on the news is Twitter actually removed their hacking policy. So what this is, not too long ago, a news site in the US actually used a piece of evidence from a hacked
laptop.
Well,
I wouldn't say it's a hacked laptop. Apparently, I don't know what the relationship was, had a laptop and for repair, and then they left it at the repair shop, and the repair shop basically extracted information out, emails, all of these
Yeah.
days?
So in this case, that's actually part of the policy. Go on.
Yeah, I read about that. That's something to do with Joe Biden, right? I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
So, what's the argument for removing this policy is often, sometimes certain kind of information can only be get illegally, and in this case, this is actually a person that is important to the election. So we have the term for that. It's called political exposed person. So it's important enough for them to actually revise the policy. Most news have this kind of problem, but
I guess they don't want to encourage the culture
Correct.
of like sharing illegal information. Although at this time, because it's very important for at least the American public to know, they're voting soon,
correct.
that these emails actually existed and are like real. So
Previously, this policy also used against case where you steal private photo of celebrities and all that. So that's actually one reason this policy exists. So this will be interesting policy-wise. So let's move on the consumer market side. So now you have mini apps for your iPhone. So yeah, they have a thing called App Clips, which is similar to what Android have, which I don't see as many people use. This debate in China first, because in China, Tencent in WeChat, they actually have this concept of apps within the apps. So yeah, I think it's interesting. But I don't know.
Google has something similar, right? Like instant apps.
Correct. That's the term, instant app. And in fact, after quite a few moments after that, Apple have app clips. Then they actually have mini apps. I do not know the difference for sure, but yeah, I think interesting as an application developer, but I'm not Apple user, so I don't know for sure. Anyone want to add something? If not, I move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
So HashiCorp had a new service called Boundary. It's a way to actually control the access to infrastructure.
Is this a Kubernetes management
yes.
system?
Correct. It's more for Kubernetes, but apparently it works for all hosts, service, clouds, Kubernetes, etc. So yeah, it actually helps set up all the improve the security. Interesting as well because they have a real use case. Generally, we are too lazy to care, so but it's a real use case. So there's that. Waypoint is also another service. So the reason why there's so many services happening is because there's a HashiCorp conference. So
they're announcing all of the things that they're doing.
Correct. So this one is actually a way for you to deploy for different platforms. So in this case, the example they use is they have one to build on Docker, then one on Kubernetes, and then one on Kubernetes on different configuration. So yeah, this Waypoint is a new build service from
HashiCorp again.
Yeah, correct. Then I'll move on before it's take too much time because the last topic is my favorite one. Google Cloud had crashed last week, and Google have released a postmortem. So what happened is at that time is that Google Chat deployed this so a new thing deployed that caused access to the server. So it's mostly
the deadlock condition.
Correct. So this is okay.
Test.
Correct. So as usual, they're going to improve the automated service and all that. This is interesting. If you're interested, this is a bit short for a postmortem, but I think this is short enough for you to take some example. Not enough detail are released, but enough for customers. So nowadays, not common among Malaysian companies yet, but some Malaysian startup already start releasing public postmortem. I think the template can learn from it as well. So technical wise, I don't see as many things that's interesting for us to learn from. That's my opinion. So yeah.
So they're basically just saying we messed up and we should do better.
Yeah, it's damage
No
control,
technical
isn't it?
information.
Correct. So they say this is the thing that you do, which is actually very end user specific.
Yeah.
So this is a bit short one. So the second last one is actually JavaScript Open Source Award. I've been actually giving to several projects. They know there's a new backend from the creator.
So soon.
Huh?
So soon. It's only like released like what, 2 years ago or something?
Yes.
A year ago.
So they finally reached version 1.0 ready for production and stuff. So they get an award. Swell also get an award for the Open Source Award. So a few of us have opinion for Swell, but it's a very performant. That's what I heard. So there's that. Mock service worker. I do not know what is this. Is this like service mocking a service worker, as it says? I try to figure it out. I do not know what is this. Then finally, interesting project. I think I do not know why they do give it, but that being said, this is interesting technically because you actually run deep learning and whatnot on the browser. So post animator at Face Mesh that get the award. And finally, Perfume.js. Perfume.js is a use to actually measure user performance metrics on the browser.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and also the final one is Snowpad. I do not know what the hell is Snowpad. It's a build service. It's yet another build service.
Yeah, you have a lot of those, right? You have Yarn. You have
yeah, precisely.
All the other stuff from before that people forgot already.
Yes. I tell you, JavaScript had a problem of collective ADD, but that's my opinion.
People are still starting up. It's like the whole JavaScript thing only started because of Chrome.
Yeah.
So it's relatively
It's almost 10 years already, right? It's almost 10 years.
Well, not Chrome. Well, Chrome, but more because of V8, which powers Chrome.
It's almost 10 years. When V8 are integrated with the it's almost 8 years already. Come on, grow up.
What are your thoughts on JavaScript in general?
You have to use it. It's not the worst language on the planet, but then I used to be a COBOL programmer, so nothing is worse than COBOL. They have a lot of good idea. Because there's not that many language at that moment had a nice abstraction for events. So in the early day of JavaScript, you want to do events. You don't have that many good abstraction without using another language. So they can use Smalltalk and whatnot, but then now it's get heavy. You can also use Objective-C, which is also around that time very specific for
next step
and all that. But they have very good object parsing mechanism, which is awesome for event system. But not that's a very heavy language and also very arcane. So at that time, they need something that is reasonably easy to use. And their competitor, when Netscape created, the competitor for JavaScript is actually VBScript, which is a software.
So Andy, Sean just commented, says don't use JavaScript. He's the Andy he's the Sean that I was talking about when you talk about FPGAs. So he's the guy.
No, to be honest, I think JavaScript is a great language because actually no, it's not great, but it's good because it's for entry level. A lot of people can just use it.
There are pros and cons.
Yeah,
and of course, the important thing is you understand what are the pros and cons, so you can actually make a decision about it. Right?
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we don't have much choice for browser side, but that being said, they have a lot of good idea. It's a good balance of good abstraction and easy to use, while giving a powerful feature.
Yeah. Speaking of Chrome, Google is facing the biggest antitrust case in generation.
So so finally get the latest news. Not the latest, it's just in the morning. So what the Department of Justice charging is Google are using the power to actually give money to various platforms to make Google as the default search. So what it means is that make sure that everybody had a default by paying money for it. So that is the first. That's the thing that charge for. It's not just Google using it to manipulate search result. That is in Europe. That already happened before. That already happened in Europe, but this one is specifically Google paying money. And
the US.
And what Google defense is, there's a default, but the Department of Justice are saying that people do not change the default. So there's that. So I think so this is interesting for other reason, and there's a lot to talk about because it's my favorite topic. Right? It's my favorite topic on this kind of thing. So it's similar
future
to
episodes.
Yeah,
make sure you you get yourself updated. Future episodes, Swimming is going to discuss Google antitrust, Microsoft antitrust.
Yes,
and antitrust expert Swimming.
It used to be, yeah. It's pretty interesting, and it's just on time, really on time. So let's talk. Let's introduce Calum. Please put him in the set.
Hello.
Yay.
Thanks for having me.
Let's introduce yourself, Calum.
Sure, yeah. Well, my name is Calum. I'm co-founder and CEO of Rapid River Software, a boutique software development consultancy based in Malaysia. Rapid River has existed in Malaysia for just over 5 years. We do primarily web application development and some services that are related to that, like DevOps and some data engineering. There's more than 20 people working for us, more than 20 engineers. Most of our clients are from overseas, so we're pretty much doing like business from overseas. And yeah, that's sort of like a very high level summary of what our company is about.
Cool. Okay, a big disclaimer, because I know some people actually approach us to feature them and their company. So why we choose Calum and different people is because, one, nepotism. I know Calum for a while, but more importantly, Rapid River Software is actually a pretty interesting software in a way that they have been supportive of community event on the Ruby, especially to the Ruby community, which is why I believe this is actually which is why it attracted us to actually feature Rapid River Software and Calum to DevKami. So yeah, it's not just nepotism, but it's part of them.
Well, I mean, I would say that it's a good point that you bring up, Swimang. I mean, I didn't come with an agenda to sort of sell our company, let's say, but I'm open to talking about anything you want to talk about, and you know, I haven't prepared anything, so just I'll let you lead the discussion.
Well,
there's
so
no agenda
there's a big controversy on Slack though, like just I think 2 nights before and a night ago about certain things about Slack on engineers.my about employee-employer relationships. How do I put this diplomatically? So, Swimming, would you like to open the floodgates on these questions?
Okay, so
one about
which one? Which particular one?
About the employee-employer relationships in Malaysia specifically.
The
climate of hiring.
Let me go from the top, from the easy one to the hard one. All right. So the first thing I want to ask is what kind of stack do you use in Rapid River Software? Let's start with something soft first.
It's a huge change of subject.
Yeah.
Start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So what was your question, Swimang? What kind of tech do we use?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Well, we primarily build web applications. Sorry, my cat is here and being annoying. So we started off as a Ruby on Rails shop, and the vast majority of applications that we build with Ruby on Rails on the back end. Having said that, of course, again, because we're a web application development shop, we do a lot of JavaScript. We have to use JavaScript on the front end, right? And we tend to prefer to use the React stack, React Next.js, for a variety of reasons. Lately, we have ventured a little bit into other technologies on the back end. Sometimes not because of our own choices, but because it fits with our clients' needs. One example is that we're doing a project right now with Laravel on the back end, so using PHP. Outside of that, we're big fans of Kubernetes, and we do a lot of work in sort of Docker and container orchestration. So the Kubernetes stack is something that we like. We also have a bit of exposure to data engineering and all of the tooling around that. So the Hadoop ecosystem, Kafka and Spark, and all of those tools. So we have worked with them. We're somewhat familiar with them. So those are the broad areas that we are involved in and the technology that we work with.
Right. So the company mostly involved around outsourcing a service to some clients.
Yeah. So we angle ourselves more like a consultancy rather than like a contracting shop or a digital agency. And what I mean by that is we try to figure out where our clients need help, how we can help them, how we can solve their sort of most difficult problems. And we try to take some ownership and autonomy around solving their problems. So we try to like staff and form our own teams, try to have autonomy around that. We try to focus on delivering some kind of increment of value, like a project or sorting something out, as opposed to just saying, here you go, here are X number of developers for your team. So we try to focus on projects and delivering value. So yeah, that's how we kind of structure our company and choose our projects and our clients.
Right.
So how? Sorry. Yeah, I'll go first. So how do you kind of get clients? Do they come to you and say, we want a Ruby on Rails project done, please do this for us? Or, I mean, is there some other way of, because you mentioned, very eloquently all the tech stack that you guys use. But yeah, I'm just wondering.
So the way that we get most of our business is actually through what you might call a sales technique called farming, in which we do some work for a client and then they are satisfied with it and they ask us to do more work, and then over time that expands into more projects and more teams. That's an easier way to grow your business, as long as you have some clients in the first place, and as long as those clients are able to engage you more, like more in depth or more deeply. So the funny thing is, because of that, and because of the fact that we're relatively small, we don't have a lot of churn in clients. We have a few clients that we have a long-standing relationship with. Our relationships with clients last for years. So it's funny, like we're not in this situation where we continually have new clients coming in. Having said that, it's my opinion that in this kind of business, consulting, and a sort of niche consulting boutique, that you have to obtain new business through networking and through building relationships with ideal buyers. If, like, let's say I'm as CEO, I want to position myself for new business. What I need to do is I need to be have good relationships with people who want to buy our service, and make sure that they know about us, that they understand what we're about, and that they trust us. So that's the way that we seek new business. That's the way I believe it works best. I mean, and honestly, like, our relationships with clients and even with people who join us as employees, they almost always happen through existing relationships, word of mouth, friend of a friend. So I can see that it works. Last thing I would say on that is, if you are in this kind of business and you want to learn a bit more about how to do that, there's this guy. His name is Alan Weiss, I think. Alan Weiss. He wrote this famous book about consulting called $1 Million Consulting, and he talks about how to. He basically talks to the independent consultant or the niche consulting firm, and read his material. You'll learn a lot from it. It's really, really good. So,
is that related to software consulting or just consulting in general?
Just consulting in general, but like sort of small scale in the sense of you're doing it as an independent consultant or as a small firm. It's not about big firms. But I believe his material applies to software consulting as much as any other type of consulting, honestly. Yeah.
Cool. So, thinking. So, what kind of do you actually? So, does COVID actually impact your business currently?
Not really. Not too much, thankfully. So, I feel a little bit paranoid here because I feel like every question I'm able to sort of talk off our business, I hope that I'm not like leading myself into a big conflict of interest question later on. But anyway, I'll proceed. So when we founded Rapid River 5 years ago, we wanted to make it remote first. And that was one of my personal goals. In fact, before we even founded the company, it was my personal mission to get myself into a situation where I could work in a location-independent fashion. So I envisioned that I would become like a self-employed consultant, contractor, like freelancer. That was my original plan. But how things turned out was that we founded the company instead. But it was big for me personally to be a remote-first company. So we wanted to get clients from overseas, so we'd have to be remote anyway. And I really believe in it, And so for all of those years before COVID hit, then we were practicing remote first sort of operations. We have an office. We have a small office in Bangsa South, but majority of people were in the habit of working from home at Rapid River. So when the lockdown came about, then for most people at Rapid River, there was no change in their daily routine. They just continued to do their own thing, right? And for the people who did use the office from time to time, they had to work from home, but it wasn't a big impact because the nature of the way the teams functioned was the same. So that part was pretty easy for us, thankfully. Our clients are also fortunate that their businesses were not very significantly impacted by COVID. So they're in business verticals that are fairly stable, in good times and bad times. And so they didn't want to change anything about our engagement. So to be honest, when it really started to get real, then I was pretty worried, because I was like, okay, what's going to happen? I think there was a period of a few weeks where nobody really knew what was going to happen from an economic point of view. And
still don't, to be honest.
Right. Well, that's kind of true. But I mean, yeah, but back there in March, there was a time where it was like, is the world ending? Or, but thankfully, it didn't really impact us much. So the only thing is that from March until now, everyone's been working from home. Our office is basically empty, and I don't expect that it's ever going to, for us, I don't expect it's ever really going to go back to what it was before. Even if we find a virus, a vaccine for COVID, and even if everything goes back to normal, I think that Rapid River will continue to be fully remote in the real sense that everyone is working from home. Sorry, Tristan.
You set up to work remotely initially anyway, right? So why would you change to a fully staffed office now at the worst possible time as well?
Yeah, no, for sure. We wouldn't. So that was the impact of COVID for us. And I say it. I've said it a few times, but I'll say it again. I'm very, very thankful that we were able to sort of weather that storm so well. It was
But really, because software industry don't actually need an office other than the fact that you need a mailbox. So everything's on the cloud nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. I believe that to be true. Yeah. But there are challenges with remote first working.
Yeah, I was going to ask what challenges you faced, which aren't COVID.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So COVID or not, if you're running a remote first team, there are a lot of challenges that don't really present themselves at first and sort of sneak up on you. The biggest one I feel is the absence of routine. So one of the things I tell people when they join our company is, we design the way we work to maximize people's freedom in their in planning their own schedules.
Sure.
So we try to make it so that meetings are as infrequent as possible, and and we do like ask and expect people to be able to take client calls at the sort of edge of the working day. So in the maybe fairly early in the morning Malaysian time and in the kind of evening time, but we try to offset that with as much like flexibility and freedom to manage your schedule. And that sounds great, right? I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? But it's kind of like sharp tools, if you know what I mean. Like it's great, but it's also quite dangerous because you lose that sense of routine. So before you know it, half your day might have gone past and you haven't really done any work, or you haven't really got started, or maybe you just literally do not like leave your house or get changed or see the light of day, or maybe you slip into a routine where you work later and later into the evening, and like just everything kind of blurs into one and you sort of lose your way, and that is I feel like that's happened to quite a number of people in our company, to a lesser or greater extent, and it's also happened to me. I felt it myself, and you as a individual, you sort of have to manage that. You have to figure out how to keep routine in your day. So. And there's a lot of things you can do, and that's actually why some people in our company prefer to use our office, even though we're a remote first company, because it gives them that routine. That's just one example. There's a number of examples, but that's probably the most significant one.
How did you overcome? Because you mentioned you slipped out of routine quite a bit in the past, and some of your employees do now. How do you overcome it? How do you fix that issue?
So on a personal level, I try to work during the weekdays, and I try not to work on the weekend at all. Sometimes I do some work on Saturday mornings just to sort of close out the week and get everything done, but I try to have like a break. So and I try to use the weekend as a time to recharge and reflect. And in particular, I try to make Sunday a day on which I don't even really use technology or devices that much. So
Sabbath.
it's like a Sabbath. I'm not really a religious person, but it is a bit like a Sabbath. So I try not to use my laptop at all. I try to put my phone on silent mode and put it away somewhere. I get notepads and pieces of paper out and books, physical books I might read, or I usually do stuff. I usually do a lot of things, but I don't do stuff online. So I avoid it, and if I need to, I deliberately go to my phone, do the thing I need to do, and then put it back again immediately, and that it's like a fire break in a way, because it's sort of it disconnects you from that sort of constantly being online, and it's really good for me, because by the time the day has passed, I feel very refreshed, and on Monday I feel very energized, and I really feel a difference. Mondays I feel very energized, and by the end of the week, Thursday night, and then I don't feel it. I feel myself slipping into this mode of somehow constantly being busy, but not really getting a lot of things done, and so just having that fire break on the weekend is, for me personally, it really works,
So
that's how most employees will feel anyway, right? Like sort of starting the week like on a high, and then by Thursday it's just like, oh, I just want Friday to come now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think if you ask Tristan, he might have an alternative suggestion on how to deal with that.
I'm trying things out. Still experimenting with it.
So as a result, you actually hire a very specific, hire based on certain type of personality, that highly independent and all that.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, actually. The way that I see it is that a certain type of person is attracted to our company. And it took me a while to notice that was true. Because we were like, well, we just want to hire like competent software engineers. So we'll start looking for them. And then after a while, I started to ask questions when people accepted offers from us, when they joined us, like, on their maybe first day or maybe after 3 months in a review. I'd say, so what was the thing that what's the thing that most drew you to joining us? And they were like, well, it's because of the remote first thing. I don't like going to the office. I don't like commuting. I want to be at home, And I realized that the people that joined us, they really valued that the ability, that sort of option to control their place of work and also their schedule. So the kind of like I've noticed that it's not so much that we seek people out like that. They somehow find us, you know what I mean? And it's kind of interesting. We like this, our flexibility in the schedule. There are a few people in Rapid River that really take it to an extreme. I'll give you. It's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. We have one person. Well, I'll give you some examples. We have one person who wakes up just on time for his 3 p.m. daily stand-up. So
every day.
3 p.m. Yeah. So that's his get up at 2:30 p.m. and then he starts his work around. Well, he starts his real work around maybe 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and he works until about 5 a.m. And then he goes to sleep, gets up for the daily stand-up at 3 p.m. That's one example. Another one is there are some people who will just... So we basically do our commitments based on time. So you have to do a certain number of hours per month. That's the proxy through which we measure things. There are some people that just tear through their assignments really quickly, and then when their time allocation is up, they don't do anything until the next month. Sometimes they also, the people will sort of ebb and flow with the workload. So sometimes they're like, okay, there's a lot of stuff I want to get on with. I'm just going to really put my head down and really get through this for the next few days. Once they've done that, then they just sort of take a 3 or 4 day break. And there are also other people that start work at like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. and finish early, or even do a period in the morning and then have a big break through the middle of the day and then do a period in the evening. So there's a lot of utilization of the flexibility in our company, to be honest, a lot of it.
I guess there needs to be a lot of trust, right? Because you've got different employees with different working styles. So, if one guy is waking up at 10 p.m. and doing his work till 5, and then the rest of them are getting up at 6, you're gonna have to manage all these guys. So, like, what's your mojo?
For the most part, we practice Scrum. We manage our sprints using online project management tools, Jira and Pivotal Tracker, depending on the team.
Right.
And we're very there's a few things that we do. The principle of asynchronous communication is one big one. So if you search online for asynchronous communication, you'll find some articles about techniques you can use. And the thing is, when you're in an office, when you're in a sort of traditional office setup, there's a lot of assumptions about what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And one of the assumptions is everyone kind of has to be there, because if they're not there, they'll miss out on communication, they'll miss out on things that people say and things like that. And that can be true, but at the same time, if you deliberately change your communication style to suit your environment, then you can overcome those setbacks. And one of the ways to do it, if you're a remote team, is to practice asynchronous communication. And what that means is you've got to over communicate all the time. You've got to try to write stuff down in writing as opposed to saying things. You should update. You should track all the work you're doing on project management software in tickets. You should post comments as updates. You should explain things clearly and written like language and whatever system you're using for communication. You should go out of your way to put information about the project on in a place that people can find it. You should document your code. You should really buy into documentation. There's so many things that you can do. And we try to practice those things as much as we can.
So as a result, there'll be a lot of activities on the pull requests, on your issue trackers, and all that.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Correct. So what kind of tools do you use for this kind of thing? Jira, GitHub, and all that.
Yeah. It depends on our clients sometimes. Some of our clients use Jira, and we pretty much have to use Jira. And Jira's okay. I mean, I don't mind it. I'm about the only person in the company that doesn't mind it, but I'm the Jira champion.
I like Jira.
It's kind of, I think the thing is it's really flexible, which is its greatest asset and also its biggest pain point. So we do sometimes use Jira. We use Pivotal Tracker on one project. And even internally on internal projects and non-software teams, we tend to use Trello. Trello is pretty nice, pretty easy. So
sick, cool.
Yeah, for those for project management, you use them. For source control, version control, we use Git. Depending again on our clients, we're using GitLab on some projects. We're using GitHub on other projects. GitLab is pretty good actually. I think I kind of like GitLab. Let's see. We use Slack. We use Slack a lot. Slack at Rapid River is a weird and wonderful place, let's just say. But another tool that we use extensively in certain places of the company that's interesting is we actually use Discourse. I don't know if not Discord, but Discourse, the forum software.
Not familiar with that.
And it's basically it's a forum software, and it was built by Jeff Atwoods, the guy. Am I right in saying that? The guy that co-founded Stack Overflow, and self-hosted, and so the reason that we use it is because it lets you do structured discussions. So forum, you reply, you have threads. Those threads last. You keep those threads. They're always there for you to go and reference. And it leads to more structured discussion than using, say, Slack or Slack threads, because Slack is just a bit of it's kind of like a train of thought, stream of consciousness type place where a lot of stuff flies past. But Discourse is a place where we can have proper discussions. And in fact, in Rapid River leadership, we lean really heavily on Discourse. Every leadership topic that we want to discuss, we create a topic. We describe what the thing is that we want to discuss, and then we discuss it in a forum. So that is I really like that actually. That's a good thing to do.
So there's one tool that we could use that's good for asynchronous. You'd say it's Discourse.
One tool definitely, yeah. I would say that everything I've mentioned. For documenting your code and everything about your code, use the wiki feature or readmes on your Git repository and your and the sort of web application that goes with it, GitLab, GitHub. And then, lean heavily on your project management software. Get all of your tasks in there. Don't just track a subset. Make sure your project boards always reflect the current state of reality. And then for discussions outside of projects themselves, then use something like Discourse or a forum to be able to discuss them. And don't consider chat system as something that's really going to help you. You'll need it because people need to sort of DM each other and discuss things on the fly and that. But you're never going to be able to manage it really well or keep the information there as some kind of records that you can refer to later. It's just a big stream of consciousness thing that goes past. So don't try to lean too heavily on tools like Slack. That's my in my experience, that's what works and what doesn't work.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to, it's getting a bit, so let's go to one of my favorite topics as well. I have one. So do you find it hard to hire people locally?
Favorite topic.
So yes and no. I think that, so first of all, there's a few topics I could say on this.
Yes.
Like the first thing is that I feel like the Ruby scene is maybe shrinking in Malaysia or just in general, So trying to angle ourselves as a Ruby on Rails like company is a little bit self-defeating. I was talking to a recruiter recently and saying we wanted to hire Rails devs, and they were like, "Well, what do you mean? All the Rails devs work in your company already, And
everyone.
It's not really true, but like the point is like like why like if we're off looking for more people, if we're explicitly looking for Rails developers, then it's the pool the pool of people that have those skills and actively want to continue with those skills. I feel like it is shrinking. I find like this goes back to the thing I said earlier about like networking and getting to know people. I think that there is, when it comes to hiring, when you as a person who's considering joining a company or looking for a new job, if you have a relationship with someone at a company that you trust that person, and then you're going to consider that company because you kind of get this insight into what the company's about, and you're like, well, my friend trusts these people, therefore I can trust these people, and I just think that when it comes to hiring, generally you're going to have a lot more success if you build up your network, you get to know people, you get to really show people that you are a trustworthy, reliable place where people are going to get looked after and they're not going to have to put up with a lot of nonsense, So like almost all of the hires that we've made throughout our whole history have been through that network effect, So you could pretty much draw a graph of everyone at Rapid River and see how they relate back to some relationship, And so when it comes to hiring, my advice is generally like, and this is what I try to practice, try to do groundwork, like even if you're not actively hiring at a given time, still try to get to meet new people that might be interested to join you at some point in the future. Let them get to know about your company, show them that you're a good place to work. And then when the time comes that you need to hire someone, then those people will be like, hey, I've always kind of fancied joining your company. Maybe I could do that now. And, so that's what I find that works best. But also that there's a lot of work involved in that, right? Because you're not talking about just writing a job description and posting up some ads. You have to get out there and meet people. And so, yeah, that's the way I find it. So, is hiring easy or difficult? I don't know. I don't think it's particularly difficult as long as you do that groundwork. But it's, that's my take on it.
Has it changed because of COVID? Because in the last few years, I don't know, the economy has not been the same. Do you notice any difference?
COVID, I don't have a good view on the COVID situation because we've been doing a hiring campaign recently, but that's the first hiring we've done in 2020. So we haven't been aggressively hiring through the pandemic. So I don't really know how that affected things. Over the last few years, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Like, one of the things that it's difficult for me to express too much on that, because the reason is because when we started the company, we were small. There weren't a lot of people who worked with us. We had a lot of friends and like people that we knew on our networks. And so when we hired, then it was our friends and people that we'd worked with in the past who joined us. And then and as we grew, that became less. We couldn't hire so easily like that because everybody we knew joined us. Everybody that we knew that kind of fancied joining us joined us. The people that we knew that didn't want to join us are like, no. So then our sort of network effect dries up a little bit, but at the same time, we reached a point where we didn't really want to expand so much anyway. So all that is to say, I don't really. It's hard for me to judge that.
Okay. So one thing that I noticed. So this leads to my other question. So you recently posted a blog post on one of the developer group. The salary, I'm going to honestly say, is a bit to the high side, and a lot of the junior developer develop this idea that learning Ruby on Rails means good money. What's your opinion on that?
I'm not going to say no.
I don't think the backend technology makes so much of a difference. There's a reason why we post like quite high salaries. It's because we want to find people who are very capable. The thing is, what we try to do as a company is we try to find out what our clients' biggest pain points are, and then we try to solve them. And doing that is really, really difficult. So one example is we have a client right now, and their entire business, so multi-million-dollar revenue, is based on ads, and they have a homegrown ad distribution thing. They built it internally, and they want to, and it's not very flexible. It's expensive to maintain, and they want to migrate to Google Ad Manager, right? So, and we are doing the migration for them. So it's their entire business depends on their ad network working, and so we have to figure out how to get them off of their existing system and onto Google Ad Manager. So that's the type of projects that we want to take on. They are very, very important to our clients. They are very valuable. We want to do useful work. We want to be useful. We want to deliver value. But in order to do that, it's really difficult, because that kind of migration is really tricky. You cannot really afford to screw up. You're going to affect your client's bottom line. You have to figure out a migration strategy. You have to do experiments. You have to learn the target technology. You have to do all this from Malaysia while your client is, somewhere else in the world, right? And
so in short, you have to earn your pay. That's a whole part.
Yeah. You have to earn,
job, basically.
It's not by grinding or death marching. It's by doing very intellectually difficult work, basically.
Okay.
So that, and it has nothing to do with Ruby on Rails, honestly. If you were a Python developer or a PHP developer, or a Java developer, it would all be, it's the same. In fact, that's kind of part of the reason why I'm a bit reluctant these days about advertising for Ruby on Rails, because it's not your skill, it's not your knowledge of Rails that's going to make the difference. It's your ability to figure out a complex technical problem and to implement a solution that is the thing that we're after, basically.
Yeah, I think, I don't know why, but I seem to think that, like, in my experience, in Malaysia, a lot of people seem to like chase frameworks and languages, and they seem to judge how good a developer they are by how many they've collected. I don't really think that's a good idea. Although it might be the same elsewhere, but that's my opinion.
No, you're right. I agree with you on that. I mean, before starting Rapid River, I was a developer in a previous life, and I moved from web, I've always done web application development, but I've moved from different languages and frameworks. And the thing is, the language is different, and the names of the libraries that you use are different, but the things that you do with them are pretty much the same.
That's right, yeah.
So it's you don't really. You don't learn a whole lot more by switching to a different language. You just get some context if you happen to be going into a project using that language. So yeah, it doesn't matter so much. But the ability to deliver on hard problems, that one is the one that you should be collecting examples of that on your resume. That's how you're going to get ahead.
Cool.
Maybe you should go on Developer Kaki and tell the people that it's not Ruby on Rails that makes you rich. It's your skills in general.
Yeah, maybe point me to where this discussion is. I didn't see it, so.
Streaming can tell you.
Yeah, so it's toward the end. We're going to answer some questions. So Nick here is asking, what's the concern? What is the good table to refer to? Yes.
Okay, that's a good question. I could talk about that for a long time. Okay, yeah, I don't know if you have a policy of going over, but if you do, then I don't mind to go over. But yeah, I mean, so if you really want to be a consultant, if you really want to be someone who clients go to because they can't solve that problem and they need your expertise, then go and read that book by Alan Weiss. Learn about things like ideal buyers, about your value, what your value proposition is, what your sweet spot is. You pretty much need to focus on a niche, something that you become really good at. You need to figure out how to engage with ideal buyers. But that, if you really want to be a consultant, then the Alan Weiss material is really, really good for that. So I would just go and seek that out. I would say do a bit of research in that area first.
So the next question is there only one? Yeah. I think in this case it's about COVID, but I also think we can explain it a little, I think.
Yeah, this is probably COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did not have to seek new clients during the pandemic so far, so I don't really have a good amount of context, but I do feel honestly that the software industry, if anything, has got stronger and there's more demand for engineers and for good development teams right now. So that's my read on the industry. Again, we're very fortunate to be in an industry where we're always in demand, so yeah, my take is that COVID hasn't really affected the software industry much.
Okay, so what other question do we have? Yeah, domain knowledge. I think this is a comment that is more comment than that. And yes, I actually agree in a way that domain knowledge is always been underrated. It's very underrated among it. For far too long, we talk about stuff. So any final question? Any last thing you want to add on before we move? We say goodbye like that.
I just have general questions like why do you choose Malaysia? How do you end up here? But let's leave that for another day.
Yeah. So if you don't have any other question, is there a place for us to find you or something? For more questions?
Well, I can hop onto the developers.my Slack. I mean I am there. I just ignore everything there. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean I can't follow everything.
we kind of chatty down there.
Yeah.
I'll find my login.
Yeah, you might want to join this Facebook group where Rapid River somehow just got featured, and
what's
you might be like take some answers.
No,
okay,
it's just
Facebook?
one comment. That's all.
Yeah, it's just one comment. It's just like quite interesting because it was one of the more discussed portions there. Usually you'll have like job advertisements or people asking questions, but once someone highlighted the senior developer position, and because we post our salary information there as well, and then so there was like a lot of discussions about, oh, now I know which language to study or something like that.
Well, like, I don't know. Is our salaries too high? Should we make them lower? I don't know. Like, there are some people. There's some people that think that they're too low. So.
Well, I guess it really depends on what you're paying for, right? Like you mentioned, it's really the expertise, not necessarily the language. And it's a lot of the requirements are the soft skills, like talking to the clients and then making sure all the management of the project is done well, and self-management as well. So it's those like need compensation, I think.
Yeah.
I also understand that you guys have higher requirement outside technology, but I think we have to stop now. Don't leave so soon. We have to say goodbye, and we're going to stop soon. So, anything happen? We may have something happen. More interesting talk happening next week. We're interviewing somebody which we are a friend of next week. I didn't confirm yet. That's a problem. I've been procrastinating. So that's it. That may happen next week. It won't be about antitrust cases. That's the further in the future. That's further in the future. So
we have Sean commenting as well. I just put it there.
Yeah.
Responsibilities go up exponentially. Salary. I wouldn't say exponentially. I would say it matches, but.
Or it should, otherwise something is wrong.
We should say goodbye then. So goodbye, people.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate coming along. So.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Until next time.
Yeah. Sweet man, we have a